Hi, Christie.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the why and the buy.
All right. And welcome back, everyone, to this episode of the Why and the Buy podcast. I'm here with my partner in crime, Christie Walters. Hi, Christie.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Oh, I'm great. I'm doing swimmingly today on this August afternoon here in southeastern Michigan. We've got a guest with us today. His name is Chris Cebollero. Chris, how are you?
Man, I am doing awesome, and it's good to know that you have a partner in crime, Jeff, because if ever I want to do a breaking and entering, I know who to call. So
there you go. I love it.
Very good.
And given the fact that most of my experience has been in physical security.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're good.
We've got puns galore.
My friends are laughing right now.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. We're only kidding people in the law enforcement community, so we're only kidding.
That's right. That's right. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us. You've got a new book out. We want to talk about that. You've got vast experience in the leadership management and leadership success with your firm, your consulting firm. What are you doing here today? Why are you joining us?
You know, I'm also in the podcast space, and I just love the value that we bring to our listeners. I think that it's really important that, you know, people who have a message are able to get out there. And in this day and age, we talk about blogs and podcasts and webinars, and this is really our opportunity to share our expertise and allow the people who enjoy following us to be entertained, but more importantly, to get some really great information that they're able to hopefully utilize in their professional development journey and kind of help them grow.
Oh, that's one of the reasons that Christie and I started the podcast. So I think we definitely have that alignment there. Let's have a conversation. You know, when you get intelligent people who are passionate about something in common, you get them talking, and it's amazing what happens. It's that proverbial, you know, solving all the world's problems around the campfire, right? We're not around a campfire. We've got webcams and laptops, and, you know, we just try to come to the same conclusions. But I'm glad I'm not totally off the wall in thinking that.
No, we're not around a campfire, but we're on fire.
Well, I'm going to set fire to my laundry basket while we're talking.
There we go. Excellent. I love it. Watch for that video later.
That's right. Coming to YouTube.
So, all right. Well, you mentioned it. What's the name of your podcast? How can people find it?
Yeah, it's called the Ultimate Leadership Podcast, and again, it's on iTunes. So go ahead and check it it'd really be great if you and Christie come and join me on that show as well, and let's do a little bit of cross promotion.
Oh man, I don't know if that's fair. We haven't even had a chance to mess up yet, and you're already inviting us. That's great. Ultimate Leadership. That's the name of your best-selling book, or one of your best-selling books. I mean, is that? How did you? Okay, ultimate. That means the end. This is the only one you need. It's the best. I mean, so why are these 10 rules for success the 10 rules for success?
And I think that it's one of the things that you think about when you think about ultimate leadership or ultimate success. That's what we're looking for. Does that mean that we're going to attain it when you read just one book? Really, it doesn't. When you think about the science of leadership, you know, it's out there. It's like the science of biology. It's like the science of physics. And how you kind of interpret that and how you kind of, you know, squeeze that into the pages of a book, I think that that's what makes it entertaining. So when we talk about ultimate leadership, 10 rules for success, those are the rules that I had to come up with to be a successful leader. I mean, rule number 1, never allow your emotions to dictate your actions. How many times have we made that mistake? And then, you know, we kind of talk about why that happened and, you know, how our emotional intelligence affects us that we make those errors. So when you think about, you know, ultimate leadership, 10 rules for success, what rules do I have to know not to be a bad leader or to be a successful leader? That's where I kind of came up with the term ultimate. And I kind of use that in my practice as well. You know, I have the Ultimate Leadership Academy, and of course, Ultimate Success is the next book. And I'm writing the third book right now called The Ultimate Organization. So now that you know the rules and we talk about the skills that you need to be an ultimate success as a leader, how do you now put that into the ultimate organization and make those 3 books your blueprint for an organizational success?
So now your first book was Ultimate Leadership 10 Rules for Success. And then the book that just released a few weeks ago is Ultimate Success. So tell me the difference between what you outlined for leadership in this second book.
Yeah, I mean, now ultimate success is really the skills that you need to have and develop to be an ultimate success as a leader. So we talk about, coaching instead of discipline, or we talk about, attitude is the difference maker. And, we get into the fact of your subconscious mind and how we trick our subconscious mind to keep us in the same everyday ho-hum. We're looking for those next big successes, but, our subconscious mind is the one that's given that negative self-talk. So I kind of take you through the processes of what skills you need to have to be an ultimate success as a leader and really to lead the most important part of your work, your organization, and that's your workforce.
So, Chris, do you think leaders are born?
Well, I think we're all born. We have to come from somewhere, right? But I think that there are some characteristics that you in that nature nurture category that you do possess. I mean, I think I was a natural born leader. Of course, I was making fun of people. And of course I was, sometimes a bully at it, but then I think you hone those skills as you go along in your life. So I think there is a natural born ability for leaders, but I don't think you truly become a leader until you study the science of leadership. And one of my quotes that I like to use all the time is, we know that leadership is an art and science, and you got to know the science before you can paint the portrait of organizational success.
I love that quote.
It's really, really strong. I think, there are a lot of parallels between leadership and sales or selling. And a lot of our audience are salespeople. Of course, this is a book that's applicable to them, but where do you see those parallels most overlap? Because there are a lot of salespeople who I think would be more effective sellers if they would take a leadership position. I mean, how do you coax people into stepping into that role a little more often?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the folks that I work with have sales backgrounds. And when we talk about self-confidence and self-esteem, and we talk about certainly communication skills and those conflict resolution skills, these are all things that make an effective salesperson. And when we think about, my vice president of marketing and sales has been in sales for 30 some years. And, she's sold millions and millions of dollars worth of product. And as we're writing her book now, it has a lot of leadership material that is going into the process of how you're going about your day as a salesperson. And so when you think about the science of sales, it really a lot of it comes into the science of leadership. Are you an active listener? I mean, what's the biggest thing that a salesperson needs to know is they need to know, like, and trust you. Well, what's the best way that they do that is you've got to listen. And, communication skills are very important. So I do agree that those parallels are really vital to a salesperson's success.
So, Chris, if you had to sum it up into, these are the top 3 takeaways. These are the things I want you to pull out of my book. If you forget everything else, these are the 3 things. What would that be?
Well, I really am on the kick of employee engagement. What's the true measurement of leadership success? Is it the fact that I can do a budget? Is it the fact that I can book a conference room? Is it the fact that I can, do a project on time? No. The true measurement of leadership success is that you have a high employee engagement. You have good employee satisfaction, that they're productive, that they're able to interact with the clients and customers and keep them coming back. So employee engagement is something that's really important. Treat your employees like they're your customers, and let them go and treat your customers the way that you want them to be treated, number 1. Number 2 is, let's move away from the term disciplinary action or corrective action. We don't do a good enough job of coaching our workforce. We invite these people into our organizations to help us be successful. And then when we get there, we stick them in the corner and we say, raise your hand when you have a question. Our job needs to be to grow them, to coach them, to find out their motivations, find out their goals, and help them reach the next level. Because as they grow, our organization is going to grow. But then people will always come back to me and say, well, Chris, we're going to put all this money into them and time into them, and they're going to leave. I give you the same answer, and you've heard it before, that I would rather have them be here and invest them in them be productive and then leave than them be mediocre and stay. And then finally, I think the third component is your attitude. To be a success, you really have to be able to have positive thoughts. Your thoughts affect your feelings. Your feelings will create habits. And if you're not keeping those positive, you're going to get those same negative everyday habits. Very, very quickly, if we think about biology, our conscious mind can accept, reject, or discard any idea. The sky is green. Oh, no, it's not. Now, the problem is with your subconscious mind, it is the most powerful and it controls your body. Your subconscious mind controls your body. But the problem is whatever idea you accept, it automatically imprints on your subconscious mind. I'm never going to quit smoking. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm a failure. We've got to stop saying those things because our body believes it.
That's really, really powerful stuff. It's really too bad you're not more passionate about this, Chris. I wish we had someone more animated.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'll try to work on that.
But I want to go back something, just a minute or two. You said that we need to treat our employees as our customers. And that is counterintuitive thinking, because if I'm running a company and I'm paying people to work for me, that's the opposite of a customer. Right? Yeah. I mean, if anything, I should be my employee's customer because I'm the one providing the financial backing behind this relationship. And I totally agree with you. Why do you think there are so many companies lagging behind in this kind of thinking? Because look, these are at-will employees in most cases, right? I mean, that means they have a choice. We can't, as managers, as leaders, as employers, be holding our employees under our thumbs as if we're doing them a favor by allowing them to come in every day. Why don't more people get it?
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge with today's leadership. And this really needed to be a transition over the past decade. The days of leading from a position of authority or the days of command and control are over. And especially now when we start to think about this new workforce that we're going to call the gig workforce. I mean, one of their prospects are they don't want to work 9 to 5. So you're having more of them turn into be consultants to say, okay, I'm going to come and work for your organization, but I'm going to come, tell me when you have a project, I'll come in and do that. Yep. And then they're going to have 10 or so companies that they're doing that with. But we need those employees to help our organizations to be successful. We need those employees to help us interact with our clients and our customers or patients, depending on what field that you're in. But we're not giving them the tools that they need to be successful. We have to stop thinking that we're giving people a job. If we're just giving people a job, then, if we can get rid of the workforce, our job as leaders would be easy. But they're there. And for us to be successful as leaders, we've got to be able to invest in those people and give them the tools that they need. And I'll tell you, as a consultant, when I go into organizations, the first thing I do is I look at their employee engagement scores. Because if the workforce isn't doing the job, there's going to be a challenge. The Gallup organization will tell you that 73% of our workforce, almost 3/4 of our workforce, is either disengaged or actively disengaged. Number 2, that costs organizations $450 to $550 billion a year in productivity. That's why they've got to start listening, Jeff.
What's interesting, though, is the more engaged the employee, the better work you're going to get out of that employee. And I liken that to contracts, whether it's with your gym or whether it's with your client. It's, look, if this person is only doing business with me because they are contractually obligated to, what kind of output am I getting from them? I think that as a leader, you need to be earning the engagement of your employees on a daily basis. I think as a salesperson, you need to be earning the loyalty of your customers on a daily basis. And I'm looking at you two on the video here. I'm seeing nodding heads. I mean, we all get it. This is not a terribly difficult concept, but people are either just too obtuse or ignorant or just in denial about the need for this. And it looks like you're carrying the torch and leading the way.
I think one of the things, just to go very, very quickly with your last comment, was enough people aren't becoming the students of leadership. And you need to be able to, if you work the science of leadership, you'll be successful. But, we're taking our positions for whatever reason. Maybe we get the more money, we get to wear a tie now, we get the parking spot. Those are things that shouldn't be in our, in our portfolio to become leaders. You really have to take a service approach to leading the people. You manage processes, you lead people. And I think that if you can follow the science, you'll find great results.
Yeah. And I think, too, if you're trying to create a coaching culture within your organization, there's a process to follow, right? So it's not just like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, we're going to be coaching a coaching culture now. Okay, go back to work, right? So no communication, no process, no structure, none of that. Or, oh, by the way, we're gonna invest in this one-day training, and then we're going to go back to business as usual. So that's a really challenging thing. And I know you just interviewed someone on your podcast about the concept of creating a coaching culture. So how do you do that?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you got to be able to think about is, what is it that you would have wanted in that position as well? You know, I was a paramedic that sat in a truck for a long time. I knew what it was like not to have the equipment to do my job. I knew what it was like not to have good leadership. I knew what it was like not to have my great ideas listened to. So now as I start to step into those leadership roles, do I do those same things? And you've got to be able now to think about, when you were in those positions, what did you like about the leaders you had? What did you dislike about the leaders you had? How do you now, look at the workforce and say that they're the most important part of this process? And I think from an engagement of or starting a coaching culture, and you said it very well, is once you start it, you can never go back. Once you push that, rock on the top of the hill, it's going down, and you better make sure that you stand behind it 100%. Because if you're in front of it, it's going to be a challenge. But then I think you talk to the workforce and say, what do you look for in an environment? What do you want from this organization? Because it's your organization as well. And then listen to what they have to say and ask them what their goals are and ask them where they see themselves in 5 years. A lot of organizations have tuition reimbursement, let's say. But are they sitting down with their employees to say, let's take that benefit and let's get you into some classes? What are your goals in the next 5 years? Let's get in our bigger organizations. I've talked with one of my clients who are now talking to the local colleges to teach classes in their organization, because they have, whatever it was, 13,000 employees. And now within the first semester that they're just starting, they've got whatever it is, 1,800 of their people who are going into college classes in their own building. So, you've got to be able to look at those things to tell folks, what can I do for you today?
It's the opposite, right? I mean, what's really happening out there with tuition reimbursement is, okay, here's your tuition reimbursement, and we will pay so long as you get a good enough grade, which isn't really that terrible of an idea, but as long as it is going to help you do your current job now better. And what that does is it sets the employee up to immediately mistrust the leadership. Right? Like, I don't want to advance myself. I'm here for a job, and okay, you're going to pay for my advancing of and the furthering of my education and my skills. But so long as it helps me do the job I'm in right now, the reason I want to go to college is so I don't have to do the job I'm doing right now forever. And that's the rub. It always comes down to trust, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. But I think, again, it has to trust in the changing of the mindset. If I'm going to say to you, I have a tuition reimbursement, benefit for you, but here's the caveat. You've got to do classes that I say you got to do, right, and you got to get this grade who's that benefit for then? Right. Is that benefit truly for me? So we really have to change our mindset to think about the people that we invite into our organizations to help us be successful. If I didn't need to hire you, Jeff, we wouldn't be going through the hiring process. But I need you. Right. I need you. You don't need me, because you can go work anywhere.
Right.
So that's where we have to change that mindset.
Absolutely. Well, and I love kind of going back to your concept of, what happens if we spend all this money, we train all of our employees, and then they leave. But the question, and this is, I've seen it attributed to Richard Branson, but there are plenty of other people I think that have said it as well, is what happens if they stay? And all of a sudden, now you've got a better educated, you've got a leaner workforce, you're more efficient. Now the sky is the limit. I mean, really, there's no cap to the success that the organization can attain. Yeah, absolutely. And so, there are a lot of people in my parents' generation, for example, that lived their life in one career, right? They retired everything was about hitting this nest egg at the end of the rainbow, or hitting this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, if you will. Today, that's different. It's not the same thing, but there are still companies out there that are creating that kind of rabid, loyal mentality, but only if they're approaching it in the way that you've described.
Right. And I think that one of the things in my career field, specifically in the ambulance career field, we ask this question a lot: is EMS a career field, or is EMS a stepping stone? Well, it seems that the ambulance field is a stepping stone, and people want to be able to become nurses. They want to be able to get on with career fire departments. So they don't want to stay in the ambulance for 20 years. So one of the things that I would tell all the people before they would eventually get out of training and go to their own ambulance was, don't waste your time while you're here. If you want to go to nursing school, if you want to go to medical school, how cool would it be on your medical school application to say that you were involved in research in this job? Or if you were going to go to a fire department, to let the fire chief know that you were involved with the continuous quality improvement process at your last job. So take the opportunity to learn those things. Now, what I got out of the deal was, however long they were with me, it was my job to get them to the point so they can get the job that they wanted. So what did that do for me? Well, that left a hole. But wait a minute. There are people who are lining up behind them who appreciate my style of leadership, that want to take their positions as they're moving on to the next big role.
Sounds like a customer relationship. Sounds like a theme.
I should bring that up. But Chris, it works. You know what I'm saying? It works, Jeff.
It does. Yeah. I'm just over here like, you're preaching to the choir over here, Chris. But this passion comes from someplace, and I know that you've been inspired as a leader by some other leaders. Who are the people that inspire you most in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to leadership, my friend and mentor is John Maxwell. And, when you think about leadership, and I think that I'm good at leadership, but when you sit in front of John Maxwell and he gives you his leadership experience and knowledge, you realize just how much leadership you don't know. And so he's given me a lot of different ways of looking at that science of leadership. So I think that he's been a really great friend and mentor. And of course, in my career, I've had some really great people who have been able to answer the call of challenge and taught me about emotional intelligence and taught me about how to have problem-solving skills. So, there are folks out there that I would give shout-outs to: Ernie Rodriguez, Matt Zavodsky, Brian LaCroix. I mean, those are the guys who make leadership look easy. And I don't want to let them down for what they've invested in me. And I try to do the very best job possible to make them feel like their legacy is something that they can be proud of as well.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful. Kidding.
And here's the other thing too. Not only is it powerful, it's rewarding, because now you get to recognize them. Because early on, you obviously, you work closely with John Maxwell. You also worked probably a lot more closely with the gentleman that you mentioned after John. And, it's an opportunity for you on your podcast, on this podcast, to kind of recognize those people. And every time I get a chance to really recognize those people, it's always nice to be able to give back. And I would mention one person's name in particular, but not until he comes on as a guest. And he knows who he is, and he's listening right now. And that's going to be okay. So I'll get a text message in probably 6 minutes as soon as he gets out of his car, I'm sure. But... or now I won't, because he's going to try to spite me because I call it. But that's the kind of relationship we have.
See, you shouldn't say it. You just jinxed it.
We'll work through it. No question. So Chris, tell me, what is, have you read anything sales or leadership wise that really just stuck with you? Do you have a favorite?
There's just so much, I think, that's out there. And, John Maxwell's got some great books. I'm reading The Leader's Mindset right now, which is really talking about the algorithms of problem solving. They're mathematical algorithms that give you the opportunity to figure out how to problem solve. I got to tell you, I'm a little bit lost in it because math was never one of my strong suits, and I have to gone back a couple times. But the principles and the ideas of it are really, really interesting. But I go back a lot to a lot of books that I read over and over again because I believe in the core foundation. Of course, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is one of my foundational books that I love. And but you know what? I'm a student of leadership, and my reading and my increasing my core knowledge and growth will happen until I can no longer read or listen or watch. But we've always got to be there. I mean, for you to be at the pinnacle of your game, it's a continual process that happens every single day.
Absolutely. So, Chris, every time we get a guest on the podcast, we ask them one question, and that is, what is your why? And you can take that in any direction you want, but tell us what's your why?
I think my why is developing a legacy. And I just talked a few minutes ago about, I want to be able to be successful for the people who've invested in me. But now my why is being able to do that back to somebody else. When you give to a follower, you're just giving it to them. But when you grow the next level of leader, you're multiplying your leadership skill. So I want to be able now, as I'm 52 years old, as I get ready, maybe when I'm 60, to walk away from my career, what is my legacy going to be? And how do people point a finger and say, Chris Cebollero was? You think about it, and when somebody passes away, there's usually just one sentence that we use to describe, oh, Chris Cebollero, he was a really snazzy dresser. Oh, you know what? He could really tell a story. But my why now is what makes me get up in the morning, what drives me, what motivates me, what's the passion. And that really is defining my legacy, that when I finally walk away and hang my hat up, that I have something to be proud of over my career, and something that the people that I've touched and valued and showed value to in my career can say, I really appreciate what he did for me.
Oh, that's powerful.
Wow.
Jeff, you and I talked early on about the concept of doing a podcast episode just on creating a legacy. And I think that's a great opener for that. So, Chris, we might have to bring you back for that episode as well. Maybe we'll bring a couple of people in and do a mashup on it. But I think that's very powerful.
I am very happy to come back whenever you guys extend an invitation, and we'll talk about whatever you want.
Well, I think what we do is we just add a couple more chairs around the fire, throw a couple more logs on.
There you go.
We just make the whole thing bigger. But how can our listeners who want to sit around this campfire, if you want to sit around your campfire, your laundry basket in the middle of your office, right? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my cell phone number, 314-297-6850. Don't reverse the charges. You can check out the Ultimate Leadership Podcast. Go ahead and do that. My website is www.chriscebollero.com. And you can check me out on Facebook at Cebollero and Associates. And, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter at Chief of EMS. So come and find me, man, and let's share some leadership stories and knowledge. And certainly one of the things that I want to help do as well is, kind of cross with some of my guests. So if there's guests that I can send your way, I'm happy to do that as well, and give you the opportunity to grow your audience.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And we're going to take you up on your offer to come onto the podcast. We'd love to do that. That would be Jeff and I love to turn the tables every now and then.
Yeah.
The book is Ultimate Success, Strategic Leadership Excellence. And I assume Amazon, all the normal places you can get your books.
It is. And just to say that all proceeds of that book go to supporting children, mine. So please feel free to contribute to my retirement. And
a cell phone number and a punchline.
How about that? How about that?
There.
A cell phone number and a punchline. Gotta love it.
I love it. That's awesome. Hey, we are all about supporting children on this podcast. So,
Thank you so much.
we're right behind you. Chris, Thank you so much for your time, and we really wish you the best with the book. It's already a #1 bestseller. You're second, so put that feather in your cap and have a glass of wine to celebrate, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Truly my pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
You bet.
Okay.
Christie.
Thank you.
Chris sounds like he knows his whys.
That's right. Because when you know your why,
Your hows and your whats get way, way better. Thanks everybody
Way better.
for being here. Check us out next week. We will talk to you then.
see ya.
Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at the Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week. How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band, they call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.